Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Friday Night Mike. Friday Night Mike, that's what it is. It's Friday night, and we're here to talk about Georgia-Florida football. And 3:30 tomorrow, can't wait for the game to get here. Season in the balance, right? Nobody needs to run from that. Everybody needs to know that the SEC East is going to be determined tomorrow in Jacksonville, Florida, when the number 5 ranked Bulldogs play the number 8 ranked Florida Gators. And from the outside looking in, let's be honest. It looks like two teams that are going in opposite directions. We're gonna talk more about that and detail, just what Georgia's got to do to win this football game. This is a winnable football game for Georgia. It really is. I know I had just put a report up. Multiple sources saying George Pickens not expected to play. Look, George has been injured. We know that. We know that he didn't travel to Kentucky. Now there's reports that he's not going to play tomorrow. How many catches would George Pickens have had with Stetson Bennett under center? If you're going to be realistic about it, probably not any more than 3 or 4. Now, that's not to say that not having George Pickens is all cool and everything. Listen, if Pickens can find a way to come running out of that tunnel, there's an 11th hour change, that would be a great lift for Georgia, right? But the reality of it is Kirby Smart is a guy that believes you got to go with who you got. And he doesn't spend much time feeling sorry for himself. Any of you folks that heard Kirby's radio show Thursday night, he said, look, not as deep as they've been on defense, right? And there's opportunities. There's opportunities for other guys to step up now. And that's what Georgia football is. It happens at Alabama. I've seen it happen at Clemson. You see it happen everywhere where players get injured. Now, unfortunately at Georgia, it's been a spate of injuries all around that Kentucky game. I mean, it's all happened at once, right? Pickens hurt in the weight room, and you get 4 guys injured at Kentucky on your starting defense, and then Richard LeCounte. And it's just, when it rains, it pours. I've seen this happen before. I think I've told you guys this. Tennessee, that number 10 ranked team that beat that beat Georgia on the Hail Mary in 2016. The next game, they went to A&M and they lost like 4 or 5 guys. And it happens. It's college football, and it happens with difficult scheduling. And I said at the start of the year, this schedule could really hurt Georgia. It was a front-loaded schedule from the league office. And we looked at this schedule, and we saw in succession Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, and Kentucky. And we all said the same thing. Man, that is the toughest 4-game stretch in the SEC. The end schedule is easy. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Missouri, Mississippi State. That's fine. But the fact that these games were stacked on the front end was trouble. And then Arkansas turned out to be more of a dogfight than we thought, right? That was supposed to be an easy game, a layup. It wasn't. Arkansas turned out to be better. You look at Georgia's schedule today, it's as good as just about any teams in the SEC. Ole Miss might make a case if you look at the one-loss record. But Georgia has gone through a very difficult schedule, and here's where they stand. And all the tears and the worrying and the crying isn't going to help that football team, win that game tomorrow. Those guys have got to circle up. They need new leaders and young players to step up and emerge against the Florida Gators to win their 4th straight game. Georgia hasn't won 4 straight games in this series in 37 years. It hasn't happened since Vince Dooley was the head coach all the way back 1983. So Kirby and Georgia trying to do something unprecedented, trying to beat the Gators, trying to get to that 4th straight SEC championship game. And it's going to be tough, right? Florida comes in a team that's only played 1 game in the last 3 weeks. They're a rested team. They probably played their best half of football against Missouri after that halftime brawl. Now, you could argue and say that maybe the SEC office should have done more than just fine Dan Mullen $25,000 and thrown out some of the Florida players involved in that halftime brawl. You could make that argument. You could say that. But I think all of us would agree Greg Sankey did a great job throughout this entire COVID-19 pandemic. And it's hard to say 2020 what he should have done. But yeah, I was looking at that saying, can Georgia maybe catch a break with some suspensions for Florida? Nobody wishes bad news on anyone, but you step back and you look at it and you wonder, right? Just like you heard the Florida coaches this week when they said, they feel terrible about Richard LeCounte. You see a lot of the Florida fans saying, boy, I really wish we could play Georgia at their best. And I think a lot of people do. I don't think anybody in college football roots for injuries. I mean, I think it's a cool sport like that. And this is a tough time of year. I mean, the Bulldogs haven't played a home game since, I guess it's been almost a month, right? October 10th. And, Georgia's administration made a decision to continue to play this game in Jacksonville. And so they'll go at it. And Kirby Smart talked about that on his radio show too. He said, a lot of guys in his profession would prefer for that game to be at home, right? Typically to recruit. But he also talked about the environment and said it's more like a pro game because the crowd is split and the fans aren't really there in the pregame like the student section getting their guys jacked up, right? He said it wasn't, I don't think the word he used was emotional, but he said a word like that. It wasn't the same type of environment. So it's going to be up to Georgia and Florida to bring their own juice, so to speak. There's only going to be about 18 or 19,000 fans there, right? Because I think each team might have had 9,000 ticket allotment. So those teams are going to have to bring their own energy. It's going to be a split crowd, but it's going to be a split crowd with only about 20,000 people. So it's going to be kind of quiet out there, and it's going to be really important for these players to bring their own energy. I think what Georgia needs in a game like this is some early momentum. And I'm going to get into some stats here in a second that show you how Georgia can win this game. But right now, I need to share this. If you guys could do the share part, we always do this on the Friday Night Mike show. On the front end of the show, I got to get this. I got to get this out there for people to see. I'm starting a little bit earlier tonight, and so we want more people. They're probably not aware that we started the show earlier, but with that news, I just thought, you know what? There's no reason to hold off. People have been asking, and they've been wondering what's going to happen, and so I just reported the story on George Pickens. And gosh, like I said, you hope for that 11th hour change, and he comes running out of the tunnel. But multiple sources telling me George is expected to miss another game, and that's just, like I said, that's just college football. Friday Night Mike talks college football. So I'm going to share this on some different pages, and I don't know if you got friends that follow Georgia or Florida. We like to talk about everything involving the Bulldogs, the game. We'll take a look. We'll take a gander around the SEC. Tennessee with a really big game at Arkansas. That's kind of a hot seat game for Jeremy Pruitt. I'm not saying that if he loses tomorrow, he's on the hot seat tomorrow. But when you look at the rest of the Tennessee schedule, Vanderbilt is probably the only sure win left. And I think this Arkansas, because I think they still have Auburn, Florida, and one other team. I'm not sure who that is. Auburn, maybe A&M, right? I'm not sure though. I'd have to check that. I know we're not too worried about Tennessee right now. We're talking Georgia, Florida, because Georgia's season's on the line tomorrow. I put a story up earlier today, another story. I'm starting to get the feeling that you're going to see more than one Georgia quarterback tomorrow. And I kind of felt that after the last game. I mean, listen, Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in the country. I think all the Georgia fans know that. And I know that it's probably made it maddening that you look at the quarterback situation and say, how did we get here? And certainly it wasn't by plan, all right? Nobody thought Stetson Bennett. Kirby Smart didn't go into the season saying, hey, I think I'm going to start Stetson Bennett. I think it was a matter of circumstance, and I think it was a matter of Kirby trying to play the quarterback that he felt the team was responding to. And obviously, we saw how the team responded to Stetson at Arkansas. I mean, 6 series in, Georgia wasn't doing anything. Now, that wasn't all on Dwan Mathis, to be clear. There were bad snaps, there were missed blocks. Jermaine Burton ran the wrong route, led to an interception. And I felt like Dwan probably took more of the criticism for that than he should have at the time. But what happened was I think they decided, hey, let's rock and roll with Stetson. We can do some things here. Now, one of the great statistics about Stetson that I know Kirby Smart is very keenly aware of, and earlier when we asked Kirby, what do you like about Stetson? He likes the team's ability on third down. Stetson is completing 72% of his passes on third down, and Georgia ranks 6th in the SEC in third down conversion rate. And you might roll your eyes and say, oh, big deal, 6. But again, remember that schedule. Remember that schedule that we're talking about here. All right, Georgia has played arguably the toughest schedule in the SEC. You look at the other teams that are converting at a higher rate, I'll bet you they haven't played a schedule that's comparable to Georgia's, right? And so when I look at Florida, and even though I said at the start of the broadcast, these are teams headed in different directions, Florida coming off a big 41-17 win over Missouri, you know, Georgia, a smash-mouth 14-3 win, injury-riddled win at Kentucky, right? That was a tough win that took its toll. As Kirby said after the game, it was a costly win in terms of the physicality of it. But Kirby said all week it was going to be physical like that. But who's Florida played? Who's Florida really played? Texas A&M is probably the best team that Florida has played so far. They played South Carolina, they played Missouri, and they've played Ole Miss. So they haven't played a defense anything like what they're going to see with Georgia. Even with Richard LeCounte out, to me, and I said this on the Feinbaum show Thursday, to me, Lewis Cine is key. Not saying you're going to miss Richard LeCounte. You're going to miss the playmaker. You're going to miss the team leader. Kirby Smart talked about that, said you're going to miss the confidence, right? You need some things to go good early. You know, Dan Mullen, 15-1 when Florida scores on their opening drive, all right? That's a very key stat. Florida is the best opening drive team in the SEC so far this season. Georgia's got to derail that, okay? They've got to hold the Gators on that opening drive, I believe. I think that's going to be the first thing I'm going to look for. And Georgia, by the way, is the best defense at preventing the other team from scoring on the opening drive. So strength on strength. You know, for all we've talked about, even with that Alabama game out there and 564 yards against the Tide, Georgia is still number one in the SEC in total defense, number one in the SEC in scoring defense, number one in the SEC in pass efficiency defense, number one in the SEC in rush defense, and number one in the SEC in sacks. All right, so this has been a special defense. Now, you take out Richard LeCounte, and I think that's the most costly injury because Richard's ability, number one, to direct traffic, although I have a lot of confidence that Christopher Smith can handle those responsibilities, be vocal, help the team get lined up. I mean, Christopher Smith is no slouch. This guy had, you know, he's an Atlanta kid. He had offers from Alabama, Auburn, Michigan. I mean, he's not as big and physical as Richard, you know, but he's a tough kid. He's going to get in front of people. I promise you, this kid is not going to be intimidated, all right? So I don't see the breakdowns in the secondary unless, and this is my concern, is Lewis Cine out there. If you're missing one safety, it's one thing. If you're missing both, and we're talking about throwing Major Burns out there or moving Tyreek Stevenson, okay, now we're playing left-handed a little bit more if you're Georgia. Need to see Lewis Cine out there at safety. That's a key. Kirby said earlier this week that Lewis Cine would be out there, that he had a sprained ankle, that he was going to play. I think Quay Walker is also important. Quay had the neck injury. Kirby said he's going to play also. Monty Rice is a team captain, and we know Monty's going to play, but we know Monty's been limited in snaps with that foot injury. All right, so you need Quay out there, Quay Walker, to take a little bit of those snaps off of Monty Rice and help that linebacker situation. And then up front, you know you're missing Julian Rochester. He's out for the year with a knee, fifth-year senior. And we know Kirby said that Jordan Davis may play, and if he plays, he'd play a role. So what happens? Well, then you drop to Jalen Carter. He's a true freshman. He's a monster. He's physical. But he's not close to Jordan Davis, if we're going to be honest about it. Devontae Wyatt is a guy who was a starter at the start of the season, but he's been a little banged up. He's still been playing. So a little bit more Devontae Wyatt, a little bit more Jalen Carter, a little bit more Nazir Stackhouse, and a little bit more Warren Brinson. So a lot of young guys. Now, the good news is that Florida is not a team that's going to try to come out and run first and throw second. You know, the bad news is if there's a 3rd and 1 or a 2nd and 2, their chances go up of being able to convert. Okay, those are plays that typically maybe Georgia holds on now, right? Maybe you get that goal line stand. Well, maybe now you don't. I don't know. I'm not going to say these guys can't do it, but you're not being realistic if you say that losing Richard LeCounte and Jordan Davis doesn't hurt your team chances. Any more than a week ago when I said Alabama hurt their chances when they lost Jalen Waddle. All the Alabama fans got upset. Oh, my God, how can you say that? Because you lost your most explosive player. You're not as good, okay? Georgia's defense not as good without Richard LeCounte and with Jordan Davis limited. all right? That's not to say they can't win. It's not to say they can't get it done. Again, Florida has not seen a defense anything like what they're going to see with Georgia tomorrow. Scheme-wise, it's a chess match. Kirby's going to have some plans for Kyle Pitts. He's an incredible tight end. He's a first-round pick. You'll see some double coverage. You'll see some bracketed coverage. I think Georgia might have to simplify some things. That may not be such a bad thing. Trying to think here on, let's see. Okay, flipping it around on someone, Clarence Dawson is saying nobody talks about Adam Anderson. Well, that's because Adam only comes in on pass rush downs. Adam doesn't play on first and second down very often. And the reason why is because he's not as good as Azeez Ojulari or Nolan Smith. Now, both of those guys could be first-round NFL talents. It's just Adam plays at a stacked position, so he's at more of a situational player. Now, you know, I can't tell you if maybe they'll do some different things. I know this year Jermaine Johnson is getting some more snaps on in a different linebacker spot. Maybe we'll see Adam Anderson do some different things. I mean, Kirby Smart's been very creative with defensive packages. But Adam Anderson's a guy who does excel at the pass rush. And obviously, you know, they play a lot of guys on defense, sometimes 35 guys, because they play so much situationally. Nick Saban talked a lot about that, right? He talked about how important it was for Alabama to stay out of long down and distance situation because Georgia had all these packages that made them very efficient and very effective on defense. So, and Adam's one of those guys. So he's a talented guy. He's a guy that's going to play in the NFL, but he's a role player, right? It's no different than when you look on offense and, you know, you don't see James Cook out there on every snap. And yet I think James Cook could be the key to the game tomorrow. I think James is an explosive player that Georgia's been able to, you know, throw those short passes to, and then Cook's able to take it the distance. I mean, he's their third leading receiver, for goodness sakes. Dan Mullen mentioned that. So here's one of the reasons why I ended up picking Georgia. And George Pickens, if he doesn't play, that doesn't change my mind here. Florida averages giving up 5.5 yards per carry to opponents on their first down runs. That's a big number, okay? If Georgia can get 4 and 5 and 6 yards on first down runs all day long, they're going to control the clock. And everybody goes, well, what does that mean? Well, what it really means is Florida's offense isn't on the field, right? They can't score if they're not on the field. And Dan Mullen knows this, and Kirby Smart knows this, and you all know this. The plan for Georgia is going to be to try to run the ball and control the clock and keep the Florida offense off the field. It's what they did last year. Florida only had 7 offensive possessions last year. Hard to score when you're not on the field. I mean, we saw that with Georgia last week, the way Kentucky was able to run the ball, right? And Kirby talked about it and said, you know, we would have liked to have done more, but we didn't have many possessions. And that's what Georgia is going to try to do to Florida. Oh, excuse me. It's been a long week, folks. We've had a lot of shows. We've had a lot of copies. I'm ready for the game to get here one way or the other. This has been quite a week. I did want to point out, though, that Florida is coming off their best game against Missouri. And they did get a very important defensive tackle back. And I'm looking through my notes. I've written all these stories, and it's just all one big file. Like, I have like the Florida file, and I've got all the stories in there, so I got to scroll down. Okay, yeah. Kyrie Campbell, he's a 295-pound defensive tackle. He made his return last week. He really solidifies that Georgia defensive line, and he's the guy that enables Zachary Carter, the guy who's going to miss the first half suspended, to move outside. So the Florida defensive line just got better with him back. Now, Carter's not going to be there in the first half. So it's a situation where you really need to see Georgia get a halftime lead, okay? Kirby's like 36, 39-4 when he leads at halftime, but like 9-8 when he doesn't. That's another thing to look for. I mean, Georgia needs a good start, needs a halftime lead, okay? If you start playing from behind, things get dicey. You know Georgia's not built for that. You know they're just not built for that. The story that I put up documents what the Georgia numbers are on the deep ball. And Brandon Marcello had a story from 24/7 about Stetson Bennett on the deep ball. Again, Stetson, what he does well. You know, he's good in the short game. And Kirby talked about how he's able to get him into good plays, and he brings some mobility to the table, and he's a poised guy. But the numbers that 24/7 put out there, 7 of 20 on passes 20 yards further downfield for 275 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So we know it's not Georgia's bread and butter to throw the ball deep. Florida, and we're not breaking any news here. There's no secrets about that. They're going to try to get the ball to Kearis Jackson. Stetson's worked more with Jermaine Burton. You're going to see James Cook getting the ball out of the backfield. Matt Landers is back for this game. He's a guy that had a great offseason. I'm expecting good things from Matt Landers. And I believe that if Georgia's offense needs a jump start, I think he'd make a change at quarterback if he, I don't think he's afraid to do that. I mean, I think sometimes fans misread that. He's not afraid to do that. He just doesn't think it's best, right? But if Georgia gets in a situation where they've got to score more points, Kirby will change the game plan. But Florida's going to have to show them that it's going to be that kind of shootout. I want to take a minute. I don't know if you see the cool bobbleheads behind me. Oh, other shoulder. The cool bobbleheads behind me up there. See them right there? Right there? That's pretty cool. So I had those sent to me. They're from the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame Museum in Milwaukee. And they made that special Georgia-Florida bobblehead that you see behind me on the counter there. Really cool. I mean, this is just a really cool deal. And today's the first day that it's being publicized. And you know what? I'm going to type the link right here in the message thread where you guys can find those bobbleheads. I think that's just a really cool deal. I mean, the guy had sent me some McCole Hardman bobbleheads last year. I guess he watched the Friday Night Mike or whatever. And he said, hey, we got these new Georgia-Florida bobbleheads. Do you want to look at them? I said, sure. And lo and behold, the doorbell rings today, and I'll be gosh darned if this doesn't come out in the mail. And I thought, well, I don't have any official deal or anything like that, but Georgia fans like Georgia stuff. So there it is. These things cost $60 with an $8 shipping charge, and it's pretty cool. I'm telling myself I'm keeping it, and I'll put it on a desk somewhere someday. I don't have a desk here, but I'm gonna keep it out. I mean, if you're a Georgia beat writer, I mean, it's not really like a Georgia fan thing because it's really about the event. It's Georgia and Florida, and it's really cool. So appreciate the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum in Milwaukee, and you can check it out. And I've sent you guys the link. I put that link on there. You can take a look at it. So if you guys are interested in it, I know there's Georgia stuff everywhere, and everybody does a great job with it. And listen, this is a great program to cover. It's a great program to be around. And as dark as things seem right now, again, 2 teams moving in opposite directions, right? I've seen stories, and I've covered games where there's a catalyst and something happens. And you say, I can't believe it. I was at the Michigan State-Michigan game in 2015, when that punter, right? I'm covering Michigan State. I'm the Michigan State beat writer. And Michigan State, I thought, was better than Michigan. I thought they were just going to win the game hands down, but things go wrong. It's rainy. Their receivers are dropping passes. And I'm thinking, I can't believe they just lost to Michigan. And lo and behold, Harbaugh sends the punter out there when he doesn't even need to. And he has trouble with the snap. And the ball is free. And it's picked off by Jalen Watts-Jackson. And he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable, right? And I'm standing there in the press box. And all I'm thinking is, how in the heck am I going to write this story in the next 5 minutes and get down there for interviews? And I'm looking around and nobody is saying anything. It's complete silence, which is amazing. Because usually in the press box, there's talking or there's boosters in there cheering. Nothing. Just complete silence. Things happen, all right? There are game-changing plays. Heroes emerge. And you guys have watched Georgia all your lives and seen the Bulldogs pull games out. And sometimes you don't really find out what your program is made of until your back is against the wall. And if you're Kirby Smart and Georgia Bulldogs, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to show everyone just how talented your depth is. This is an opportunity to show the level of buy-in. It's an opportunity to show that those second team and third team guys getting reps really were given 100%, that they really were working harder than any other team during the COVID-19 break. You know, one of the unfortunate things about this for me, and I talked about the schedule, that's out of Georgia's control. That irritates me. I'm not going to lie to you. That SEC schedule that the league gave them with that front-loaded schedule, I knew it was trouble from the start. And just like last year, folks, remember last year when I pointed out that 5 Georgia opponents had a bye week the week before they were supposed to play Georgia? Remember that? And everybody, oh, who cares? And one of them was South Carolina. Did you care then? Listen, Georgia has caught some bad breaks these last couple of years, all right? And last year, they still managed to finish in the top 5 in the country. Even though that receiving core had 6 guys injured and DeAndre Swift got hurt, that team still finished stronger than ever. Remember, there were like 13 starters that weren't previous starters that weren't at the Sugar Bowl. And Georgia went out there and put it on Baylor with 13 guys that had started not even on the trip. So we've seen this team respond to adversity before, okay? So I'm just saying, don't write off that Florida game tomorrow. Now maybe, who knows? You know, maybe without Richard LeCount, maybe Monty Rice can't rally the guys. Maybe Monty just doesn't have the voice to do it on his own. But I don't think so. Maybe we hear a voice from Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell. You still, to me, have the 2 best corners in the SEC, the best duo, right? And if Lewisine plays, love this guy. And you still have Azeez Ojulari, who is the premier pass rusher in the nation. He has the highest pressure rate of any player in the country. You still have the best pass rusher. You still have 2 NFL cornerbacks. Nakobe Dean. Nakobe, the team leader in tackles. Nakobe's still out there. Okay, he's a former 5-star. You still got some dudes, even if, right? Even if Scene doesn't play, which I think Scene's going to play. I think Scene's going to. So that defense, all right? I know they gave up 564 yards to Alabama, but guess what? Florida can't run the ball like that. They don't have Najee Harris. That's the difference. When a team can run the ball on Kirby Smart's defense, that's the kryptonite. I'm not convinced that Florida can be balanced. Now, I'm hearing a lot of things about Kyle Pitts, right? You hear a lot of things about all the weapons. The Gators have a great receiving core, make no mistake about it. Their receiving core is probably, it's better than Auburn. It's deeper than Auburn's, okay? And you saw how Georgia handled Auburn. Why? Because Auburn couldn't run the ball. Now, Trask is better than Bo Nix, but he's not mobile like Bo Nix. The question is, can Dan Lanning and Kirby dial up the pressure on Trask? If they can do that, then they give Stokes and Campbell and whoever's at safety, Christopher Smith, Scene, Major Burns, Latavius Brini, whoever's back there, you got to, Mark Webb, you got to give those guys a chance. Okay, you can't let, Trask be standing there, all day holding, waiting. You can't have that. All right, so job number 1 is going to be to get that pressure. And you know that Georgia's got some things they haven't shown. You know Kirby always saves stuff. And offensively, you know that they say, I think Trey McKitty. I think Trey McKitty. I just can't believe, because against Kentucky, I was really surprised McKitty didn't get more work, and I thought, he's just too good for this. I think Trey McKitty is a guy, right? I think James Cook is a guy. And I know Zamir had 26 or 27 carries, and I know he's not explosive, and I know that a lot of people believe Kendall Milton's a better, but maybe part of the reason Kirby didn't run Milton 20 times is he wanted him fresh for Florida, right? So I think you're going to see some stuff, the stuff they save, the stuff, because Kirby kind of only gives you as much offense as he, and I agree with this, by the way. I remember covering Alabama in the 90s, and there was a lot of, this is going to sound crazy, right? There was a lot of dissension on the 1997 Alabama football staff. It's 23 years ago, right? I can let the secret out now, okay? Bruce Arians, who is now the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who became NFL Coach of the Year with the Colts. Bruce was not well liked by the Alabama offensive staff when he was brought in. That wasn't his fault. It was not his fault. He was an outsider brought into a staff that was upset because Woody McCorvey, who is now Dabo Swinney's right-hand man at Clemson, did not maintain the offensive coordinator position when Mike Dubose was named head coach. So the rest of the staff was kind of chapped about that. And they weren't all in on a lot of the things that Bruce Arians wanted to do. Well, Bruce in the opening game tried to create some energy for the Alabama offense. The thought was that Alabama had to evolve from Gene Stallings into this more creative, explosive offense. So Bruce Arians ran a couple trick plays in the opener. That didn't go over well with the rest of the staff. They said, hey, why are we running this bells and whistles stuff when we got a 3-touchdown lead? Don't do that. That's stupid. Save that stuff for when you need it. Okay? Kirby Smart saves that stuff for when he needs it. All right? So you haven't seen a lot of stuff. Kirby's told you that he sees it in practice. He's trying to tell you there is more to this offense than you have seen. But there was no reason to use it against Kentucky. I agree. Now, 14-3 is not pretty. And I still wonder if maybe we should have seen Dwan or JT Daniels by now. I think we all wonder that. Heck, maybe Kirby wonders that every now and then. But Kirby's about doing what it takes to win games, right? It's kind of like when you play golf and you're playing match play, stroke play with the guy you're going up against. And he hits one into the woods on his drive. And he's hitting 3 off the tee. Well, maybe now you take that driver and you put it back in the bag and you go, you know what? I think I'm going 3-iron on this tight dog leg because you just want to keep it on the fairway, right? Maybe Kirby's the guy when he's up 3 strokes and they're both 90 yards out. Instead of shooting for the pin, maybe he bunts and runs and he says, you know what? If I 2-putt, I win this hole. He's not a guy that's going to do any more than he has to and take any unnecessary risks to win football. He doesn't care about winning by 5 scores or 10 scores. Now, does he want to be explosive? Yes. And he talked about that Thursday night on his show. He said it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time. You've got to build a culture. There are growing pains involved. It takes time for these young receivers to grow into the scheme. It takes time for them to get in sync with the quarterback. Now, the one saving grace for this team has been that Matt Luke, in my opinion, has done an unbelievably good job with this offensive line. You lost 3 guys to the NFL and your Swiss Army knife back to Tennessee, right? 4 starters. And to me, this Georgia offensive line is the second in the league only to Alabama. Now, maybe Florida will prove me wrong tomorrow. Florida's got a lot of experienced dudes, okay? They got over 70 collective starts. Both of their offensive tackles have over, I want to say 21 and 23 starts. So they've got some guys at tackle that are experienced. And they've got a guard with like 27. So that's an experienced Florida line. But I think Georgia's is better. And I think Georgia's going to be able to run the football effectively. And if they can run the football effectively and stay on schedule and stay out of those long down and distance situations, big things can happen. What does Todd Monken say about big plays? He said the number one key to making explosive plays is to put the defense in run-pass conflict. In other words, they don't know whether you're going to run or pass because of the down and distance. It's 2nd and 6. Is that a run or a pass? It's 3rd and 3. Is that a run or a pass? Right? If you can stay in those manageable down and distance situations, the defense can't pin their ears back and get after you. So first down, the keys to this game, all right, we're going down the list. Number 1, early start. Number 2, Georgia first downs. Georgia offense first downs. Because if Georgia has success on first down, then they're going to be able to stay on the field and keep the Florida offense off the field. The number 3 thing, and this is from Kirby Smart, all I'm doing is repeating what the head coach said. Explosive plays, all right? In the last 2 games against Alabama and Kentucky, the Georgia defense has given up 5 plays of 25 yards or more in both of those games. That can't happen. Last year against Florida, there were only 2. And the longest play that Florida had last year was a 29-yard pass to Pitts. Now remember, that was with Richie LeCounte, okay? Christopher Smith's got to go out there and play like that guy that everybody thought he was when he had those offers from Alabama and Auburn and Michigan. All right, this is a tough kid from Atlanta, Christopher Smith. All right, this is a guy that's going to be at the right place at the right time. Now, is he going to make the play? Can he break the tackle? Because Florida, Kadarius Toney, now that Jalen, and I wrote this earlier, Georgia played the most explosive player in the league when they faced Jalen Waddle. They're playing the most explosive player in the league now when they face Kadarius Toney because Waddle's out. This guy's a dude, man. This guy is fast. He's strong. He's hard to tackle. He's become a better receiver, and he's a big compliment to Pitts. You can't double both of them, right? And Pitts is the matchup. He's the matchup nightmare at 6'6", 245 with an accurate quarterback like Trask. Trask is accurate, all right? And that's why you got to get pressure on him. So those are a lot of my thoughts so far on this game. I took a lot of stats here going into this game. Another key to me is going to be the red zone. Red zone play is going to be very important. Florida is the #1 red zone team in the SEC so far. The Gators have scored on all of their red zone trips. Even more impressive, Florida scores touchdowns on 76% of their red zone trips. So they're scoring touchdowns, not field goals. Georgia, conversely, 11th in the league in red zone offense. And they only score 58% of the time. They only score touchdowns 58. That's a number that's got to change. Georgia's got to be better in the red zone. Now, I think that can change because remember last week I was going in saying Georgia's a terrible starting team. Georgia hasn't scored on an opening drive all year. Georgia doesn't have a touchdown on a second half drive. What do we see against Kentucky? Opening game drive and touchdown drive to start the second half. So they get better, all right? Todd Monken is an excellent coach. And a lot of that third down number I gave you on Stetson, 72% completion, a lot of that's Stetson, but a lot of that's Monken. Okay, Monken is a great play calling guy. There's a reason why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers set a single season franchise record with Todd Monken calling the plays. And he's also very good with receivers. So the guys that have been disciplined, that have been getting coached up, the Kearis Jacksons, the Jermaine Burtons, hopefully Aaron Smith is a guy that can emerge. You all know about Aaron Smith. He missed some time with a knee. We'd seen some, that he might come back at some point this year. He's a flyer. Matt Lander's healthy again. Marcus Rosemead, Jack Saint, Justin Robinson, another player that I heard good things about in fall camp. Haven't seen him much, but he traveled last week. There is a whole, you guys are mentioning Darnell Washington, the big tight end from Las Vegas, who's starting to get himself in playing shape. There are weapons. Now, to this point, they may be unproven, and to a certain degree, because Georgia hasn't thrown the ball a lot, but they're there. And every week, I contend this is an offense that can get better. Now, can Stetson get better? That's the question that Kirby asked today. Kirby said today, you can't make bad decisions. I mean, he made it very clear. I mean, he said it Thursday night. You can't make bad decisions. And I think if Stetson makes a bad decision or two, that you could see a different quarterback. You might see a different quarterback anyway. They've had enough time now with Dwan Mathis to maybe put a package together. JT Daniels' mobility did improve according to Kirby Smart. And, JT's had the knee brace off since Tennessee. So to me, I look at this game and there's a lot of question marks. And that's, for you guys that follow me on Twitter, at Mike Griffith 32, you probably saw me retweet that segment I did on SEC Network. And even later that night on our Cover 4, I've been hesitant to pick this game because I don't know who's going to play. That's what I was trying to say. If you tell me Lewis Seen's going to play, I feel a lot better about Georgia if Lewis Seen's going to play at safety. I really do. Missing Richie is huge. It's huge. There's nobody that's going to fill his shoes. But I think Christopher Smith is competent. But I think you need Lewis there. I think Lewis brings it. I think he's such a talented guy. I think Tyreek Stevenson is an impressive guy. Tyreek the Freak is a guy that I think could get some matchups with Pitts. I think Nakobe Dean can create some problems. There's a lot to think about. A lot to think about with this game. It's exciting. So here's Georgia. Georgia is 40-4 with a halftime lead, 8-9 tied or trailing. And here's some obvious numbers for you, okay? Kirby 36-1 when the other team doesn't score 20 points. You know, Dan Mullen as a head coach has not got 20 points on Kirby in 3 attempts. Now he did when he was offensive coordinator at Alabama, and Kirby was at the Alabama defensive coordinator when Dan was the offensive coordinator for Florida. Florida 15-0 under Dan Mullen when they scored 30 or more points. I mean, does that not say it all? Florida 30-0 under Dan Mullen. So it can't. You don't want. And you heard Kirby say after the Alabama game, don't need this to turn into a boat race, right? So now here's something else that I found encouraging. You know, Florida, for all their offense, and they are an explosive offense. They lead the SEC in the percentage of drives that are touchdown drives. They're the best in the red zone. But their opponents have run 298 plays. Florida only 254. What does that tell you? That tells you that opponents have had success sustaining drives. And here's your third and Grantham stat. Third and Grantham. Opponents against this Florida defense are converting 56% of the time when it's 3rd or 8 or less. So what does that tell you, right? Florida is susceptible in the secondary. So Georgia's got a chance at this game. You know, technically they're favored. But with the injuries, with the tone, the tenor, you know, and let's just do one more thing, right? Let's go to weather.com. Look, you got to look at everything. You know, the teams are. Kirby's got somebody whose only job is to look at the radar. I feel like we're looking at NASCAR, you know, and you got the crew chief, and they got the radar looking at it in the pits to decide when to bring the car in the pits. What does the Jacksonville weather tell us about tomorrow? Let's take a look. What does it say? I'm looking. Overnight, 40% chance of showers tonight. I don't care about the riptide statement. You'd think I'd be able to figure out how to look at tomorrow's weather. I'm trying to get to it. Hourly forecast. Next 48 hours. Here we go. Next 48 hours. They're saying that, they're saying there's a 15% chance of showers at 3 p.m. Winds from the east-northeast at 16 miles per hour. The rain is supposed to happen in the morning. It's going to be hot. It's going to be 78 degrees, 79, okay? Conditioning is going to play a role. Even more reason why Georgia needs to control the ball, keep that defense off the field. You're thinner on that D-line. Heat could be a factor in the second half for Georgia if they're not able to control the clock. Georgia has to play a clock control game. There's no other way around it. I mean, this is, you know, we're talking about what's got to happen tomorrow. These are the same conversations that coaches are having on both teams. Take a look at the odds tomorrow. Let's look at some of the other games. I want to talk about them real quick. Let's see here. I saw somebody said on ESPN that even if Clemson loses to Notre Dame, we know what kind of team they are, so they should be in the playoff. No, don't give me that. All right? That was Alabama the first year. And then they did a correction, and they kept Georgia out, even though Georgia was one of the best teams in 2018. So don't tell me we're going back to, well, they're really one of the best, but they didn't play in their league title. No, don't give me that. Clemson needs to beat Notre Dame tomorrow. All right, let's take a look at this. Looking for some games to pick. Looking for some SEC odds. Okay, the line on Georgia, Florida has dropped to 3 points. That's probably about right. The over-under, if you're aware of that, is like 52 or 53. So what the over-under is when you combine the team's final scores, what's that number? And they're saying right now that the over-under is 52. So people either bet, will the team's combined final scores be over 52 or under 52? I picked 30 to 27. So I'm right around that over-under number. I'm going to go with the over, but listen, don't gamble on this game. Don't gamble, period. Trust me, as a sports writer, you know, covering football for all these years, there's times, you know, we're always aware of the betting line because we always tell the readers because it's kind of an indicator of what's supposed to happen. But seriously, the only time that I gambled on sports was I was out in Las Vegas in 1999. I was covering a NASCAR event, and I was covering the Las Vegas race, and it was March. And the SEC basketball tournament was going on. And I wasn't covering basketball then. I was all football. But I thought I knew I'm an SEC guy, right? So I was out in Las Vegas, and I decided in 1999 I'd try and bet on this basketball. I lost every bet I made. And that's what you got to be willing to do when you go to Vegas, right? I think I said, okay, I've got $100. I can lose that and be okay. Well, I lost it, and I wasn't okay. I was upset. And I told myself, don't ever think you know more than the odds makers. Don't ever think you know more than the odds makers. And all the teams I cover, I don't bet on. Even though I think I know things, I don't know as much as I think I do. All right? There's a reason why they've got those fountains and those big buildings and hotels. Okay, they're making money because they're right and you're wrong more times than not. So I don't encourage betting. Now, for fun, we pick games to give fans our idea who we think will win and why and things like that. And I said 30-27 because I think it's going to be a close game. Either Georgia's going to be ahead and have to hold on, or Georgia's going to fall behind and Kirby's going to make a quarterback change. And I believe, I'm on the record, I believe that I think Dwan Mathis is capable, and I think JT Daniels is capable. So I'm the glass is half full with me if Georgia goes to the next quarterback, whoever it is. I'm very optimistic about that. So some people aren't as optimistic. Now, I only saw 30 minutes of a scrimmage earlier this year from the bridge, all right? And I happened upon it. They were supposed to be done when I was driving by, and everybody else was standing out there, so I got out and stood out there. And I put my Dog Nation mask on, and the person said, you can watch, but don't film. So I watched. And let me tell you, JT Daniels has an NFL arm, and he gets through his progressions. Not great mobility, probably on par with Jake's, but the guy's got a big arm. It was a scrimmage. Dwan was hot and cold. I saw Dwan make some really good throws, and I saw him throw some balls in the dirt. That was way back in August, okay? A lot's happened since then, but that's my vantage point. And also just knowing what Dwan's been through, and then knowing what JT did at Southern Cal, and knowing why he didn't do more. Like, he had 3 different play callers. Their center couldn't get him the ball. It was horrible. But did you know that in the first half of JT's game against Fresno State in 2019, he completed 25 passes? Stetson hasn't completed that many in an entire game this year. I mean, JT Daniels is a gunslinger. And if a situation calls for a gunslinger tomorrow, Kirby knows where to find him, right? And Dwan Mathis is a phenomenal athlete. And if the situation calls for a mobile quarterback with a big arm, Kirby knows where to find him. But right now, plan A is to go with Stetson, try to run the ball, try to have a fluid offense, a highly efficient offense, good third down. You're good on third downs with Stetson, 72% completion rate, 46 third down conversions. That's plan A, okay? That's what you've worked on all year. It's what you think you can do in the dark. But if the situation calls for plan B or plan C, Georgia's got some potential answers. And the Florida defense is not that good. Granted, they're coming off a game where they played great against Missouri, but even though I'm down on the Georgia offense, they're better than Missouri. Listen, even though I think Zamir is merely good, he's still better than Larry Roundtree, the Missouri back. Kendall Milton is special, I believe, and can do special things. And if Kenny McIntosh is out there, he can be a game breaker too. So there's game breaker players. It's just, how does Georgia get him the ball? And again, I'm a firm believer that Georgia showed nothing against Kentucky. I think you're going to see a lot more tomorrow from the Georgia offense. So we came upon that line. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. This is almost sad. Mississippi State an 18.5-point favorite. Do we even care? I feel bad for Derek Mason. I think he's an excellent coach, and I think he's got an incredibly difficult job there at Vanderbilt. He was the defensive coordinator at Stanford when they played Michigan State and that 2013 Rose Bowl that I covered. Let me tell you, that Stanford defense was the real deal. Derek Mason's an excellent coach. Texas A&M, South Carolina. A&M is an 8-point favorite on the road at South Carolina. Look, I think I like Will Muschamp a lot. I think the Gamecocks are a salty team, but I think A&M is playing really well right now. I think A&M's got a chance to win out and maybe be that fourth playoff team. And after watching South Carolina at LSU, I just saw how LSU just overwhelmed South Carolina with their athleticism. I like Texas A&M to win the game and cover. I just don't think that South Carolina has the players or the athletes. Clemson is a 4 or 5 point favorite at Notre Dame. Trevor Lawrence is out. I think they still beat Notre Dame. Listen, the Irish playing at South Bend, Georgia fans that went there, it's different. They grow the grass a little longer, at least they used to, kind of thing. The whistle seems to go the Notre Dame way. I just think Clemson's got too much speed for Notre Dame. Tennessee opened as a 3 point favorite at Arkansas. The line is down to 1. Typically, when the line goes one way, I pick the other. Why? Because, like I said, those guys in Vegas, they build fountains and hotels off everybody being wrong. But in this case, I just feel like Arkansas's got mojo. Tennessee's a better team. Tennessee's got more talent. Who knows? Maybe Tennessee wins by 17. But I just feel like Sam Pittman and Arkansas have got some mojo going right now. So I'm going to go with Arkansas in that game. And those are some of my other picks. Now, I promised you guys I would look at your comments. I know you guys did the share thing. I appreciate you guys sharing this to as many friends as you've got. I think that's important. The more people that watch the show, the better for us on Friday Night Mike. I want to keep coming to you guys on Friday night. And it's important that a lot of people view it. So, if you can share it, I appreciate it. Let's see, what do we got here? Bruce Farmer says Mike Griffith can have his moment. Listen, Bruce, this isn't about me, all right? I cover the team. I'm giving you my opinions and my thoughts, okay? I get paid the same, Now, listen, make no mistake about it. It's a lot better and a lot easier for everyone in Georgia when Georgia wins, okay? It's good for the economy. It's good for the fan base. It's a feel-good situation. It's better for business, right? And it's true at any beat. But my job is to document, history accurately and report things that I find out. Like the Pickens thing earlier tonight. I heard it from one person. I heard it from 2. I heard it from 3. I had to get it from 4 people before I felt comfortable putting it out there. And you don't look for stuff like that, okay? Stuff like that finds you. And, he's a high-profile guy. Didn't play last week. There were questions of if he was going to travel. Typically, that kind of news doesn't come out till Saturday, but because he's such a big-name guy, news like that slips out, okay? And now, here's the thing. Like I said, 11th hour, who knows? Maybe things change before kickoff. I don't think so, or I wouldn't have reported that he's expected to miss the game. Giving you my opinions on the quarterbacks. This is based on what I know, based on what I have seen. Now, Kirby Smart and Todd Monken have seen 1,000 times more than I have. And they get paid a lot more money to make decisions on this stuff. So I'm a sports writer. I'm not looking for a moment. I'm just giving you a perspective. Somebody that kind of looks at this and says, have I seen something similar and how should this go? I'll give you an example, all right? A few weeks ago, Georgia was going to play Alabama. And all I could think was that the Stetson Bennett story was great, that he beat Auburn and they beat Tennessee. But I told myself, I just can't see the day that a former walk-on and fifth-string quarterback goes in to Tuscaloosa and beats Alabama. That's just too much. That's too much. That script wouldn't even fly in Hollywood, right? So I'm thinking, Georgia's playing good, Stetson's playing good, but that's asking too much of Stetson Bennett. So I picked Alabama. A lot of people say, oh man, you really took a chance. No, I didn't. I mean, who would have said, if I would have said before the season, hey, do you think Georgia could beat Alabama with Stetson Bennett? You'd have said, at what? Right? So Stetson's already exceeded everybody's expectations. And let me make this point. Because a lot of you watching also have Twitter, and some of you use fake names, okay? Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Listen, I've been trolled for years on Twitter. It's part of being a sports writer. People are going to attack you. It's part of being a public figure, all right? When someone uses their real name, I'll usually respond and write them a note and say, hey, why are you upset? What's the problem? Even some Dog Nation fans early on, were like, oh, I don't know if I like you, Mike. And I would send a message and say, well, why not? Well, you reported that. Well, you have to understand, my thing is to try to tell the truth. That's it. I can't do it any other way. I'm going to give you my unfiltered opinion. I can't act or pretend or say something for effect because that's just not what works for me. And after 30 years, if I had to be a faker or a phony, that'd be pretty pathetic. But I've been doing this long enough where it's like, you know what? I'm going to say what I think. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to try to report things as accurately and as timely as I can. And I'm going to choose things that I think people need to know to report on. And be careful with it. I'm going to try to bat 1,000, right? I don't want to be right most of the time. I want to be right every single time, okay? And that's my approach. But getting back to my advice, don't be that guy on Twitter or Facebook that's bashing your players. As frustrated as you get, don't attack Stetson Bennett. Don't do that. Listen, that kid walked on at Georgia instead of taking a scholarship other places. And he stuck it out, and then he wanted to improve himself, so he went to junior college. Let me tell you, that's no picnic at Jones Junior College. And then he could have gone to Louisiana Lafayette and competed to start, but he came back to be a backup at Georgia on scholarship. The kid bleeds red and black, and all he's done is his best. And for Georgia fans to say and write mean things about Stetson, it's not good. It's a bad look. And this fan base has been as classy as any I have covered. And I mean that sincerely. I promise you. You can ask my friends, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, Mike really will tell you that the Georgia fan base is the nicest that he's covered. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And, you know, like y'all don't say mean things about your former coaches for one, right? Mark Richt. Okay, he didn't win a national title, but you know what? The Georgia fans still respect him. Jim Downing. A lot of stuff happened with Coach Downing, but you know what? He's still a beloved figure. You know, he's still involved doing media stuff, you know, and of course, Vince Dooley's treated as a legend. He won a national title in 1980, but he only won one. A lot of people could make the argument, probably should have won 2 or 3. But, you know, you don't do that to your coaches, right? Ray Goff, the 1976 Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC, great community figure. Hey, things didn't go the way he wanted at Georgia, but you don't see Georgia fans bashing him, right? So treat your players with that same sort of respect. Understand that 99% of these players could have gone anywhere else. They all had multiple offers. And they chose your school. They chose your school. They chose to be a part of this. So it's like there's no good returns to being ugly towards players. I'm not saying you can't say a guy had a bad game or, geez, I'd like to see this other guy play. But just don't be that fan base that turns on your guys because it's ugly. And there's no coming back from it. Those players feel it, okay? I promise you. I know they're told not to look at social media, but they all look at social media. Or their parents do, or their relatives do. There's no value for a fan to publicly rip his team. You want to say it privately? You want to get mad in the living room? You want to tell your brother, your uncle, your sister, your mom? Cool. But when you put it out there on the internet and the whole world sees it, let me tell you, that reflects on you. And I say, what kind of fan is this? What kind of dude is this? You know, oh, greatest fans in the world. Really? You really think you're one of the greatest fans in the world? You just wrote that about an 18 or 20-year-old kid? Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Or that girl, okay? Because female fans can write mean stuff too. I can promise you that. I've seen it from everybody. All right? And, you know, hey, attack the sports writer. Hey, the Palooka Mike. Hey, you dummy Mike. You said that you should have seen another quarterback, and Stetson went out there and threw for 250 yards and won. Griffith, you're an idiot. Hey, come at me, right? I'm a man, right? As Mike Gundy once said. But don't go after your players, right? Kirby talks about how adversity reveals character on the football team. I think it reveals a lot about the fan base, too. I do. What's going to happen if Georgia hits a snag? Y'all going to bail out, and suddenly Kirby Smart's not a good coach? Don't be stupid. Don't be ridiculous. Georgia football is on track. Now, there's been some injuries, and you got a bad draw on the schedule. I'm telling you, you got a bad draw on the schedule, and you got some untimely injuries. And sometimes that's all it takes to flip a football game. It's no different than the NFL. It's no, you know, what are you going to do? It happens. I saw it happen at Tennessee. 2016, Tennessee plays Virginia Tech in the Battle of Bristol. Game that they couldn't wait to play in front of 162,000 people. They fall behind 14-0. They come back and win. Tennessee plays Florida. They're down 17 points at halftime. They come back and beat Florida. Then they beat Georgia on a Hail Mary. Tennessee's 5-0, ranked in the top 10, and everybody's playing Rocky Top, right? Then they go to A&M. A&M's ranked in the top 10. College game day's there. It's about 100 degrees, and they lose 5 or 6 guys on the turf. Kamara goes for over 300 total yards. But everybody's exhausted. They've lost half their players. They had 16 guys in their 2 deep injured. You know what Georgia's number is right now? 15. So that Tennessee team that beat Virginia Tech, that beat Georgia, that beat Florida, that beat a good Ohio team that won their MAC division, that beat a good Appalachian State team that won their conference, 5-0, that caught up to them. The attrition, they go to A&M, they get laid out. So now I'm watching Georgia. It's 4 years later, and I'm seeing Georgia have to play an Arkansas team that's better than we thought, an Auburn team that's creeping back in the top 25. You saw what they did to LSU, right? A Tennessee team that at that time hadn't turned the ball over and was riding the longest Power 5 conference streak in the nation, okay? And then Alabama with an offense that right now is ahead of any Alabama offense, even the Tua offenses. They're ridiculously good. And then a Kentucky team that's as physical as anybody in the league. Their offense may stink, but they're going to hit you, right? That's a tough 5 games. And now you play Florida, okay? Sometimes the schedule doesn't fall your way. Now, all that said, I still pick Georgia to win because I believe they can run the ball and I believe that Kirby can scheme them up. And if Lewis Cine plays, which I think is really the key injury to look for, right? I know you guys miss Pickens, but let me tell you, Pickens hasn't been catching balls this year. He's got 13 catches through 4 games. It hasn't been working out. I think Kirby talked about trying to do more with George, but if the guy's injured, the guy's injured. You know, what are you going to do? It is what it is. So I'm going to look for more of your comments now. I'm seeing a lot of support. I'm seeing a lot of people. Doug McPherson, I don't know about Kenny McIntosh. Kirby said earlier this week he was still rehabbing. That'd be a good one. Kenny's a great return guy. Daniel Moore. Listen, he's not going to outduel any of those quarterbacks. No question. But that's where the Georgia run game and the Georgia defense has to kick it up. Now, here's the question. If he doesn't start making better decisions, Kirby's going to make a change. I could hear it in his tone when I listened to his show Thursday night. Go back and listen. Go to GeorgiaDogs.com and listen to Kirby Smart's Thursday night radio show. And you can just hear it when he talks about it. Or you can read my story. I got a story on Dog Nation where I quoted him. In fact, I'll read the quotes to you. I mean, Kirby's no fool, okay? Listen, he's not going to bury his guy and talk bad about his players. You want him to talk bad about his players? He's not going to do that. But he's going to be realistic, and he's going to let you know that he knows what the heck is going on. I mean, Kirby gets it, man. I mean, he understands. He voiced concerns with Stetson Bennett. Here's what he said. This is what he said on his Thursday night show. He's got to be smarter with the ball. At the end of the day, you can't turn the ball over physically, meaning fumbling it or making decisions on where to throw it. He says interceptions are going to happen. You saw it with Jake. Balls get tipped or balls go through receivers' hands. Saw that against South Carolina last year. Those things happen. But you can't have interceptions because you're either physically fumbling it or throwing it and making the wrong decisions. You can't make bad decisions. He said at that point, it starts to question your decision making. So if Kirby loses confidence in Stetson's decision making, then he will make a change. Because Stetson's out there right now, because he's earned the trust of his teammates and his coaches. And he's got to, shake off a couple bad decisions against Kentucky and Alabama and play a good football game. It is what it is. That's what it is. That's the situation. It's not complicated. I see Jake Frigo is saying no Pickens, no Rich. Listen, no Richie is huge. Jordan Davis is big, but not as big as it would be against Alabama or a team that runs the ball. Florida does not run the football typically. That's not their attack. The Richie thing is big. Christopher Smith has to come up really big. No doubt about it. I agree with Chad on the schedule. Last year, 5 teams with a bye. This year, the front-loaded schedule. But listen, I said this once before, and I'm not going to dwell on it. But the Georgia administration didn't help themselves by not moving this game back to Athens amid COVID. That would have been a break. That would have made things a little bit harder on Florida and a little bit easier on Georgia. I'm not saying that wasn't enough to make a difference in the game, but Georgia kind of did that to themselves, all right? And so you haven't had a home game since October 10th, and you won't have another one until November 21st. So Georgia chose that money, that little bit of extra money, to go play in Jacksonville with only 20,000 people there. And it's not like there's going to be any tailgating or partying anyway. And Kirby talked about that on his show. He talked about that. He said it was awkward. So, the head coach didn't want to be down there. He's not going to publicly second guess the administration, but everybody knows Kirby wants it home and home. So let's leave it at that. I'm not going to drone on and on about that. Dante Eddy wants to know about the over-under on sacks this season. Well, part of what that is, Dante, is how big is your lead? How many teams are playing from behind on you? And because, to me, it's pretty remarkable. Again, talking about the difficulty of Georgia's schedule, it's pretty remarkable to me that Georgia leads the league in sacks, even though they've played this schedule. Wait till the schedule gets lighter the rest of November. Now, unfortunately, you've got to win this Florida game for those November games to really kick in, right? That's not to say that those games won't be valuable. Every game's going to be valuable at Georgia. Every game. Every step forward is valuable in college football. Too many people now look at this as, well, if you don't make the playoffs, it's a BS season. That's a wrong approach. That's not college football. As a purist, I worried that would happen. College football is watching a program grow and watching a culture solidify. And Kirby Smart is in the midst of changing this offense. I know you don't see it right now with Stetson, but the offensive culture is going to change at Georgia. Kirby recognizes what he needs to do, but it doesn't happen overnight. And if you're not there yet, you cut your losses and you do what you think helps you win. And that's what he did against Kentucky, and that's what he's going to do against Florida. And the game plan can change. It can flip like that. Let me tell you, don't be surprised by anything tomorrow. Don't be surprised by anything. I'm not. I'm going to sit here and tell you this. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia lost by 4 touchdowns, and I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia won by 3 touchdowns. That's what kind of game this is. Now, more than likely, I think it's 30-27. But because of the emotion, because of all the possibilities with this Georgia offense, anything can happen. This is an emotional game. Football is an emotional game. And if you played it, you understand that. Momentum means everything. I see Chad with a comment. What if Kendall Milton comes in and on the second carry goes 73 yards? And Del McGee goes, you know what, I'm going to ride the hot hand. And Milton goes for 225. I've seen it happen. I was sitting in Baton Rouge in 1996 when Sean Alexander had 1 carry for 17 yards and a touchdown in the first half. Nobody knew who he was. He went for 274 in the second half. And a game that was 7-6 turned into 28-6. This is how football rolls. So don't be surprised by anything. Just go into tomorrow and say, you know what? Regardless of what happens, I'm going to have this mindset. I'm not going to let myself. That was kind of my feeling on the election, right? I went to bed and I said, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm not going to let this take over my life. And I'm still not. I've still got the guard up. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am covering Georgia football, and this election is not getting inside of my wall. Okay? And whatever happens, I'm going to support the president. I served in the military. I'm a proud veteran. I had the GI Bill that paid for my college. And whoever's in office is the commander-in-chief. And I'm rolling with it. Because that's what you got to do, man. That's my job. I'm not going to blast anybody on social media. I'm not going to do that. Just like I'm not going to, just like 95% of the Georgia fans aren't going to do that to their football team. Good or bad, they're not going to blast. They're not going to put Kirby on blast or some kid on blast, right? Because tomorrow is that unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. There's so many factors. The weather, who's at quarterback, who scores first, who leads at halftime, who does play, who doesn't play, who gets the call, who doesn't get the call. There's still Florida people that say that Brian Herrien didn't really catch that pass. And if Brian wouldn't have caught that pass, then the whole game would have been different. They still believe that, right? And you know what? If you're a believer in the butterfly effect, that, one thing leads to another, that's sound. That's sound. What else we got, folks? What else we got? It's Friday night. Mike, I get Steve Rogers. I see your comments. Kenneth Wiggins, you get your Hibashi and Suchi. Listen, enjoy Georgia football, folks. Kirby's done an unbelievable job building this program. It's an exciting game tomorrow. You've won 3 straight on Florida. You've won 3 straight SEC East Division titles. Florida's got to go through you, right? They got to go through you. You're the top dog. They got to knock the dogs off. And this is going to be a determined Georgia team with a lot of kids that are going to be looking to make a name for themselves and make the most of their opportunities and step up. All right? These guys were all handpicked for situations just like tomorrow. Now, yes, Florida has the intangibles. It does appear to be 2 teams moving in opposite directions, but all it takes is one play to change that. All it takes is one series. All it takes is one score. And that's what Kirby and Todd Monken and Dan Lanning have to find. That's what Georgia's got to find. They got to find that one play. Because you've seen it and you felt it, right? When Stepp threw that interception deep in Alabama territory, you said, oh, there it goes. You felt it, didn't you? You did, okay? When Cager caught that touchdown pass, 52 yards against Florida last year, you said, that's it. Got him, okay? There's going to be a moment tomorrow, and you're going to know. And I don't know which way it's going to be. It could be either team. It's up to those players to decide it. The coaches have coached it up. Mullen's going to have some sneaky plays up his sleeve. Kirby's got some stuff he ain't ready for. Trask is going to get hit. There's going to be holes open on the offensive line. It's going to be up to that running back to beat the linebacker and the safety. It's going to be up to that receiver to make the 50-50 catch. It's going to be up to Stetson to make the right pre-snap read. It's going to be up to Scene to separate that ball carrier from the ball when Tony catches it over the middle. It's going to be up to Nakobe Dean to slow Pitts down so he can't get his timing on his route. It's going to come down to that. It's not going to come down to what I say or what I want or what you put on Twitter or how many people you hate on. It doesn't come down to any of the social media stuff. So show class, stay poised, and enjoy the game, all right? Enjoy the game. It is going to be a spectacle. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I predict it's going to be memorable. One way or the other, you're going to remember the 2020 game. It's 2020, folks. Anything can happen. Listen, be safe this weekend. Stay poised. Enjoy the game. Enjoy being a fan. Remember why you love Georgia. They're going to have a game the next week against Missouri at noon. Win, lose, or draw, right? But most of all, be safe this weekend and enjoy your Georgia football. Have a good one, everybody.